Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming along today. My name is Neil Graham. This is Simon Roberts, Peter Byrne. You'll see us a lot this season. Although you guys are pre-K and kindergarten, so most of your games will be up at Thunderbird Park. These guys are predominantly down at Kachis, where our first grade and older teams all play. But we pop in and out of Thunderbird, and hopefully we'll be seeing you in many years to come as well. So the idea of this today, how many of you are first-time coaches? Everybody, all right. So we're all in the same boat there. So the idea of this is to really just give you a little background into the soccer club, a little introduction to us, and then a little bit about coaching 4 and 5 year olds, and then more kind of the nuts and bolts and logistics of how the season works. So we've got a little presentation here, we'll crack on through it, and then how many of you still need to pick up your uniforms and stuff? A few of you? Okay, so we'll do that at the end. Hopefully it'll not take too long. Not actually, we used to do these meetings every season, and then we haven't done them for 2 years because of COVID, so I'm hoping I still remember all my hilariously funny jokes in this presentation, but there's a fine chance I might not.
You don't have them in your PowerPoint?
No, they're all in here. So, as I say, our recreational league is massively driven by volunteer parents like yourself. It's what makes it tick. So we certainly, I know I heard a few conversations earlier, some of you have been, I'm not so sure volunteer is the word that would be appropriate for what you've decided to do, but the rec league is all about parents stepping up to coach their kids' teams, and without the parents the rec league wouldn't exist. And the rec league has been going strong in Scottsdale since the early 80s, actually late 70s. Simon's father actually was involved in that when it started up in Arcadia way back in the day. So yeah, it's without the parents it just wouldn't happen. So we certainly appreciate you stepping up and volunteering, and hopefully at this age group, obviously they're 4 or 5 years old. It's really herding cats. That's all it is. It's just an introduction to the sport, and I'm sure you will. It might seem a little daunting at first, but I'm sure you'll have a blast once you get going and have a lot of fun with it. Let me see. Just to give you a little bit of background on the club, as we said, the club started kind of late 70s, and back then it was known as Arcadia Scottsdale United Soccer Club. It stayed that way probably through the 90s. Yeah. And then I think in the 2000s it rebranded to Scottsdale Soccer Club. And then in the last 6-7 years, Phoenix Rising, the pro team, approached us as part of their kind of mission to become an MLS club. They needed a youth arm, so they had 2 choices: either start their own youth club or merge with an existing youth soccer club in town already. And quite a few of the Phoenix Rising owners actually had kids in our club, so they approached us and said, would you guys be interested in a merger? And it actually, believe it or not, it took about 9 months to hash it all out, and so since then we've been Phoenix Rising Youth Soccer Club. And I've worked for the club I think for 14-15 years. Simon, you're longer. How long? 22. Peter, you're about the same as me, right? So collectively we've been involved in the club for a long time. We've all coached all ages, genders, across the gamut over the years. So we'll try and give you the benefit of what we've learned over the years and a little bit of guidance. But the club, we've got the rec side of the club, and then the competitive side of the club, the travel soccer side. And on that side of things, we've actually got different branches all around town. The main hub is here in Scottsdale. But we've got a Rising branch in Glendale, one in Anthem, one in Cave Creek, one in Chandler, one in Prescott. And when back in the day, when I first joined the club, on the competitive side, we were a quarter of the size that we are now. But I think the Rising thing has really helped the club grow massively, particularly on the competitive side of things. On the rec side, we're just over 2,000 kids every fall, and that has been the case really since I've been involved for 15 years. So it's been about just over 2,000 kids for a long time on the rec side. On the competitive side, I think we've got close to 5,000 kids. So overall, I think the club's round about 8,000 kids right now, which just gives you an idea of the size. It's a pretty big operation. How many of you feel you don't know a huge amount about soccer? And be completely honest, it's fine. Wow, only 2. Everybody else is Jurgen Klinsmann side.
Short meeting.
So yeah, so here's the thing with soccer, particularly at this age, you don't need to know anything about soccer. So don't worry about that. For those who are new to the sport or newish, it's a very free-flowing sport, very low scoring. Many's game can end in 0-0, and it's hugely entertaining in my opinion. But I know a lot of people that are not soccer people can't wrap their heads around how a game can finish in a tie. And I think, obviously I am not from here, I'm from Scotland originally, but I've lived here over 20 years. And certainly I think the traditional American sports, there is always a winner and a loser. In soccer, not necessarily the case. So I think the big thing for me is, compared to the American sports, it's a very player-orientated game, the game itself when we're playing games, versus I think, from what I've seen, baseball, basketball, football, the coach is super involved during games in terms of calling plays, timeouts, orchestrating, do this, do that, make this run, go here, there. Soccer isn't really like that, and if you watch the game, the 11v11 adult version of the game at the highest level, there's not much influence a coach can have on the game during the game. He sets his team up before the game, maybe he can make some tactical adjustments through substitutions and trying to communicate some information to players, but probably at half time is their best chance to try and do any tactical adjustments. For the most part, the players are out there playing and they're making their own decisions, and they're figuring out stuff in split seconds. What do I see happening out here? And they're playing the game. So it's different from, as I say, I don't know basketball, but I like watching it, and when I see it, I see coaches with clipboards and they call timeouts and they tell this player, you're going to run here, it's all pre-orchestrated moves, it seems like. Soccer's not like that. So if you're a new-ish coach, these are some really simple tips that will help you. I think if you look the part and you get there nice and early and you put your cones down and the kids arrive and they see coach looks like he's might play soccer and is enthusiastic and high fives and smiles, they're going to be buzzing and can't wait to come to practice every week. So pretty, I think, common sense things up there, but it is as simple as that for the most part, especially with the younger age groups. I think what always interests us every season is when we meet rec coaches and we ask them how their season's going, the 90% of the time the response is telling us their wins-loss record, which is the nature of sport, of course, but the reality is we put these rosters together based on predominantly what part of town you live in or what school you go to, and we're trying to form neighbourhood teams. And if the hand of cards that you get dealt, if you've got a couple of little athletes on your team, you'll win most of your games without, no matter how good or bad a coach you are. And if you don't have any of those athletes on your team, you'll probably lose every single game this season. That's just how it goes. So I think within that you have to sort of think about, okay, what are other than wins and losses, what are we trying to get out of this season? What do we want to teach the kids? What kind of experience do we want the kids to have? And so these are some of the ideas up there and we focus a lot on this on the competitive side of things as well, because you're not going to win every game. So there has to be kind of bigger life picture type things that you're trying to teach as well. I'll kind of talk about it more a little bit, but to give you an idea on the competitive side of things, a number of years ago, we kind of had, we thought, what do we want a Phoenix Rising player to look like when they're 17, 18 years old, seniors at high school, and hopefully maybe some of them are interested in playing college, they may take that pathway. And obviously it's a very small percentage that do go that route, but ultimately we hope a lot of our kids might fall in love with the game, get really into it, and go in that direction. So we looked at the kind of final picture of what that should look like. What sort of skills do we want them to have? How do we want them to play soccer? How do we want them to conduct themselves as young adults? Do we want them to, we didn't want yahoos out there that were, behaving like idiots if they lost or behaving like idiots if they won. We wanted humble, gracious kind of winners, that kind of thing. And so we looked at that big picture at the end of what, and our idea was, we want somebody to go watch a Phoenix Rising team, and if they weren't wearing a Phoenix Rising jersey, people would say that's the way that team play and the way they conduct themselves, that's a Phoenix Rising team. And then we backtracked it to, okay, so if we want that at the end, what do we need to work on when they're 16? What do we need to work on when they're 12, 10, 8, all the way back? So with our competitive kids, we have a technical plan, which is essentially a curriculum that all of our coaches work from with that end picture in mind. So it starts with rec, that's where it all starts, and a huge amount of our competitive players come from rec, and we're certainly not advocating that rec kids should make that jump at all. A lot of kids just stay in rec their entire elementary school, middle school, and they love it and have a great time. It's not for everybody. I'm just trying to give you an idea of the pathway that we want to provide for all children, starting right here with you guys, the 4 or 5 year olds, there might be some 3-year-olds, and then all the way through. So I think it is important to look at the bigger picture of what we are teaching kids, life lessons we can teach them. It isn't all about wins and losses. That does get more important, but probably not till high school age. Truthfully, before that, the kids have forgotten about a loss within seconds of the game ending, and we as coaches will be lying in our bed that night spinning it through our head, how do we lose that game? Oh, should have yanked Johnny, he was useless today. There's a bigger picture than that. What we would recommend to you is have a think about what your coaching philosophy is. And everybody's a little bit different, it's somewhat subjective. I think there's parameters that we should all be within, but everybody might be a little bit different how they want to do things. And I think, what I see, I think a lot of coaches tend to be very influenced by the coaches that coach them, who are perhaps influential on them. And that can be wildly different across the board. But if you ever think about all of these things, it's a really good idea to pull your parents in, maybe one of your early practices, and kind of introduce yourself and say, this is my wife has forced me to coach this team, didn't want to do it, but here's who I am, here's my background, here's what my focus will be this season. And I think particularly where it might help you is if you're upfront ahead of time about things like playing time, for example. I think at your age group, it should just, that everybody's getting the same playing time probably. But I think as they get a little bit older, maybe if there's a kid who just doesn't come to practice, is it fair that kid gets the same amount of playing time as the kids who are there every practice? And it kind of depends on your take on that. But if you're upfront with parents ahead of time and let them know, here's how I'm going to approach this, it saves you having an issue halfway through the season if they approach and say, we signed up to play rec, and my kid's getting less playing time than this kid, and then suddenly you're butting heads halfway through the season. But I think you save yourself all that grief. It's a good idea, start with receiving, have a parent meeting, here's my kind of rules, as it were. And the other thing, particularly again younger, is how are you going to handle kids that are acting up? And I've had a couple of emails already of coaches saying that they've got some problem children, and this is the reality. It's recreational soccer. There's going to be kids that maybe are not perfectly behaved, but they signed up to play, and they might well be a pain in the rear for you. But it's just a case of trying to figure out, okay, how do we engage those kids? Maybe the way they get engaged is a little different from your average kid. But if there is behavioural issues, do you want to say, hey, you're going to sit out for 5 minutes until you can kind of readjust yourself and join back in? But if you're upfront with parents at the start that that's how you're going to approach it, I think it just makes your life easier. You guys want to add to that at all?
Only to the point about kids showing up for practice and kindergartners, pre-K, all the way through high school. These kids can't drive themselves to practice. So sometimes you need to keep in mind that little Johnny, although he misses every other practice, it's probably not little Johnny's fault that he's not in every other practice. So just kind of keep that in mind. If Johnny's playing 3 other sports, which a lot of these kids do, and he doesn't make it to practice, okay, well they're choosing to, he's busy, he's not gonna make practice. Okay, maybe Johnny doesn't play as much. But I think at these age groups, the youngest age groups, it's just easier to play the kids half a game, and then you're gonna have some kids that are gonna play, the whole game. And you're gonna have some kids that you literally are trying to shove them onto the field, and all they wanna do is go sit, next to mom and dad, and you're like, all right, little Johnny's just gonna sit there, we're playing. And there's no solving that. There's no, you don't have the bandwidth to work on little Johnny's self-esteem issues all during practice. You can sort of cheer him up and keep encouraging him, keep trying to get him in the game. You may never. He may never leave the sideline. A good friend of mine coached last year, and that was his own child. So he coached essentially everyone else's kids during the season while his child sat in his mom's lap in every game. So that could happen to you as well. So, but I think Neil's absolutely correct. If you set those rules ahead of time, and then realize that there's going to be some weird things that you just can't, accommodate.
Pete, I don't know.
I'm good.
And then you see that around the top of the room there.
Sorry, one question.
Yeah.
I saw something that said 24-hour rule.
Oh, so
That's the most important thing you're ever going to learn.
So 24-hour rule is something we use on the competitive side, because obviously after a game people get a little caught up in the heat of the moment and emotions are running high, and sometimes if it's a particularly close game or there's a perception that it's somehow been a little overly physical, emotions are running high. So we always say to our parents on the competitive side, happy to talk to you anytime you want about your kids and their experience on my team, but not immediately after a game. You're going to wait 24 hours, go sleep on it, and if you still feel as strongly about whatever upset you during that game, we'll arrange a time to either meet for a coffee, or you can come in the office, or we chat on the phone. But immediately after a game, nothing good will come of that. Everybody's emotions are running high, and things will be said that people will regret. So hopefully with 4 and 5 year olds, that's not really going to be. But there's definitely some overly competitive parents with 4 and 5 year olds. I've seen it up at Thunderbird, and I'm looking at these. I don't know if they're A-type personalities or what they are, but it's there's definitely a lack of perspective for the fact that it's 4-year-olds playing soccer. So it's not a bad rule just to have in place.
We will get emails, and some parent is outraged by some other coach, some other player, their own coach, some other kid on the field, and we're like, okay, we're trying to figure out, okay, we're on the schedule, this is Team Johnson versus Team Smith, and we're looking, and we had the email at 9:05, and the game was at 9. They're literally just banging away on their phone, all caps, rah, I'm like, the game's not even over yet, like, whoa. Just,
yeah, we get that a lot.
Full flaps, pump the brakes, man, like relax. The kids, and as Neil said, 5 minutes after the game, kids are like, I don't know, did Johnny push me over? I didn't even remember that.
And within that, we would also ask you guys, same thing, if something upset you, rather than sending us an angry email immediately after the game, just go sleep on it. And if it's another coach that pissed you off, or something happened that you thought was out of line, let us know the next day. But the day of, it's just let the dust settle, and it'll work out better for everybody.
And that's not to minimize. I mean, there are some things that we do need to know, and we do want to know. If some parent, some coach is outrageous, and and you think it's an issue, we do want to know. I mean, honestly, we do. I enjoy confrontation with A-type personalities. I've always enjoyed it, especially when they're telling me, I'm just competitive, and they're shouting, and there's like kids this big. But we do want to know, and so if there's outrageous behavior or something you'd want us to know, please do let us know. That's not to say nothing ever goes wrong, it does. Let us know. Just Sunday morning is probably a good time. Get up, have that cup of coffee, sort of, okay, am I still, yes, this was important. Let us know, or come see us at the fields,
Yeah. So that's the idea of that. The next slide is just these are the core values that we introduced to our competitive kids, that we, again, rather than focusing on purely wins and losses, we spend a lot of time working with the kids just on bigger life lessons on the importance of having trust in your teammates, trust in the process, being resilient. If you're lost 4 or 5 games in a row, how do you handle that? All these kind of things are really important. So if you're looking for ideas on kind of life lesson type things, and again, they're 4 and 5, you're barely going to touch that at this age, but just thinking, because now that we've got you hooked, hopefully you're going to be coaching for many, many years, and as they get a little bit older, these are the bigger picture things that are frankly way more important than how many wins and losses you got when you were 7 years old. I should have said at the start, I'll send this out as a PDF to everybody so you can review it, but I'll let you, rather than me read that, I'll let you just quickly read that. So just some good advice there, and I'll send that out. This I'll not make you read, but it'll go out in an email. But the gist of it is talking about the fact, the rationale, and hopefully this one you can see it a bit better. So at the preschool they play 3v3, kindergarten they play 4v4, first and second grade they're playing 4v4, then third grade they move to 7v7, fifth grade they move to 9v9. On the competitive side, the age groups are formed by birth year as opposed to school grade. That was a change that the US Soccer Federation, who govern all soccer in the US, they're based out of Chicago, they made a decision, I don't know, 7-8 years ago to move the birth year because other countries in the world do it, and they felt like it was affecting their under-19 World Cup chances. The percentage of kids from Arizona that ever end up playing the under-19 World Cup is quite but as a result of that massive move, this is what happened at competitive soccer, but we made a decision that we were going to stick with grades in our rec league because we felt like most kids just want to play with their friends, and most of their friends are who they're at school with. So we're maybe like, because of that, the progression here, we're maybe like 6 months behind what kids are doing on the competitive side, if that makes sense, in terms of the moving from 4v4 to 7v7. The premise behind 3v3, 4v4 is that statistically they've looked at how many times does a kid touch the ball, how many times do they dribble, how many times do they get to shoot, how many times do they get to defend, how many times do they, because at this young age we're all just repetition of technique, right? That's all we're working on. We're not really worried about tactics. It's just how often can they practice the techniques of the game. And in a 4v4 or 3v3, they do it like 20 times more than they would if they were playing 7v7. 7v7, there could be 5-6 minutes go by and any given kid in the field might not touch the ball. What we want at these younger age groups is to be constantly involved when you're on the field. So 3v3, 4v4, you should always be involved. You're always going to be close to the ball. It's always coming your way. You're going to touch it all the time. That's the repetition that we want to create good, technically skillful players. What we find in rec is an awful lot of parents and coaches are in a real hurry to get from 4v4 to the real game with the big goals and the goalkeepers. And I get that. I understand that looks more like the game that we see on TV and what have you, and it is fun for the kids to get to that big goal. But the reality is, when we're watching second grade teams playing 4v4, very rarely do I see a team that can string 4 or 5 passes together and score a goal. So if you can't master that, why are you in a hurry to get to 7v7. The whole idea of the 4v4 is to try and get them used to angles of support. How can we, if you can't go forwards, can we go backwards, switch the point of attack, things like that. And until you've mastered that at 4v4, which very few of our teams have, then there's, believe me, there is no hurry to get to 7v7. But people do get a little caught up in that. I think all we can say to you there is kind of trust the process. And this isn't just a Phoenix Rising thing or a US soccer thing. This is all the countries in the world that are renowned for developing top soccer players, whether it's Brazil, Holland, Spain, countries that win the World Cup. This is how they do things with their young players. And truthfully, in the US and in Scotland also, we've been a little behind those countries in terms of figuring out this is how we develop top talent. So that's the kind of progression of as they get older, and then once they get to 5th grade, now we're playing 9v9, which is at least half the size of a full-size 11v11 field, and that starts to really resemble the game that we see on TV. Any questions on that?
So is middle school where they go 11v11 in?
No.
Well, so actually on rec we don't even go to 11v11.
Okay.
On the competitive side they do it to 11v11, I think at 13 years old, maybe 12, 13. But we've got how many 7th, 8th grade teams?
Total boys and girls, 7, 8.
So in the rec, if you think about the fact that pre-K, we've got like 20 odd boys teams, 20 odd girls teams, kindergarten, close to 30 boys and girls, but then by the time they get to 7th, 8th grade, we're now down, now granted they're much bigger roster sizes, but there is obviously the 7th, 8th grade, we're down at 6 teams. So we used to actually do 11v11 in rec, but honestly when I'd watch those games, it was kind of painful, and it'd be like kids just stuck on the edge of the 18-yard box that had been told they're a defender and just stay there, and if the ball comes near you, boot it away. And I was like, this is crazy. Can't be fun for these kids. So we made a decision. We're just going to go to 9v9, and hopefully they're a bit more active and involved in the game, and they get to touch the ball more. And so we just go to 9v9 on the rec side.
For pre-K and kinder, is there any concept of positions?
No,
Great.
they're all going to change the ball.
It's
My
great.
kids in 2nd grade, they're still barely
Yeah.
positioned.
I think also when they get, you don't like you're in the front or they're just like you're playing soccer.
Yes.
And
It's a
and
bit
all
of
six of them will be like
it's a
this.
bit of a misnomer that says 3v3, because it's really
6 versus ball.
5v1. is
Yes.
what it is. Like, I have the ball, and every other player on the field, including my own teammates, are trying to take it from me. Is what's really, and that actually kind of almost to like 2nd grade. I mean, it's still. I mean, you're gonna start to see kids like pick their head up and look to bed, but it's sort of 5v1, 7v1.
Oh.
How like long is the pre-K field? What are the
It's
And how long is the
80
game?
Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to come to that. So hold those questions just now, because that is kind of, we're going to get there.
It's
The market counts
they'll all be painted, they're all marks, they're all.
over practice.
Oh yeah, it's this size. We've got all this info here. We'll send it to you.
We're happy to help you guys as much or as little as you would like as the season goes. And if you don't need any help, that's absolutely fine. Have at it. But if you do need help, please reach out. That's what we're here for. And we'll send out video links and lesson plans and ideas just to kind of give you a little help. They're all age specific to the age group that you're coaching. And the second one there, we used to back in the day send out any one of our pro staff. We could send them out to your sessions and they'd show you how to run a ideal session for that age group. Truthfully, as with a lot of scenarios right now, we just don't have enough staff to go around, so it's really hard to do that. But what we'll probably do is we'll start up clinics for rec kids probably on Sundays once the season gets underway, and your kids can come to that for free because you're coaches, and then any other kids, it'll probably be like 10 or 15 bucks that they pay to come and do that. But within those clinics, if you if you think I'd really benefit from a pro coach helping me and showing me, bring your whole team out and we'll allocate you a coach to run a hour-long session with your team. That'll be easy enough for us to do it that way, rather than us trying to find a guy who can come to your Thursday session at 5 o'clock at Thunderbird Park. It's probably impossible because they're coaching their own teams. So one thing to make you aware of, I think soccer is one of the few sports where there is a kind of certification and license pathway that you can take that's all kind of it's a FIFA thing. All countries in the world, their governing bodies put on these certifications of courses that you can work your way through, and the lower ones are specific to coaching kids, and then the highest one is basically you would do that if you wanted to coach a professional team. So there are some really cool grassroots ones that you can do online that I'm sure you would find pretty helpful. We'll send out some information on that. And those of you who might be really into it, that might be a journey that you want to take as a coach. It definitely takes time to work your way through them all, but they're really helpful. Anything on that side?
No, I think they're great. even as Neil said, the grassroots, what is the E? That's the
The 3 grassroots modules, then you do your E license, then there's a D license.
You can knock
C.
them out. The first ones you can knock them out in an afternoon at home on your computer. But they are really helpful. And I think if you're just interested in doing a good job, and you're interested that this might be something you'd like to continue to do while your kids are growing up, I think it's worth looking at them. But I also know that if you focus on enjoyment, kids will have a great time and they'll want to come back year after year.
So just to make you aware, I mentioned the skills clinics that we'll put on. Welcome to bring your kids along. If your kid's really into it, bring them along, and I'm sure they'll enjoy it. The All-Star program probably isn't applicable really to your kids quite yet, although some of your kindergarten kids that are on the older side of kindergarten might be. But basically all that is we have our fall rec season and our spring rec season, and we have a 2.5 month gap in between. And what we do is we form an all-star team of the best rec kids who might have an interest in going to do competitive, and it's like a 2-month taster of here's what competitive soccer looks like. And they have a professional coach, they practice twice a week, they play games against other clubs on Saturdays, and then, as I say, it's I think it's a good thing if it's something you or your kid might be interested in, but you don't want to make that leap quite yet, and you just want to get a little taste of it and see how it goes. The Rising Stars.
Is that assessed? Is it skill based, or is it if you want to do it, you're in?
No.
We have an actual tryout. Yeah. And obviously the younger age groups there'll be 8 kids picked, and normally in years gone by, at say the under 8s, we might have like 60 kids trying out, and we're trying to figure out, okay, who are the strongest 8 kids, and then those other 52 kids that don't make it, we then kind of invite them to this Rising Stars program, which is a rec specific program in between the fall league and the spring league, and it's Friday night practice sessions with our pro staff, and then on a Sunday we have little pickup games where they play 4v4, and whoever shows up on the day, we just split them into teams, roughly by age and gender, of course. But it's like a 5-week program. It's a lot of fun. A lot of the kids enjoy that one. And then the Soccer Sixes one is similar, but it's just for older rec kids. Once we get into the spring season. So specific, and that may be too small to read, but specific up here are the general characteristics of 4 and 5-year-old children, and you can read over that in your own time once we send it out. But it's along the lines of what we've been talking about. I think the biggest mistake coaches make at this age when they come into it is their expectation of what they're going to do with 4 and 5-year-olds is way higher, and then when the first few practices, it's a realization of, wait a minute, all my notions of working on an offside trap and whatever, that's out the window. As Simon said, practices and games, whoever has the ball, it's them against everybody else, and everybody else is trying to take it off them. don't worry about that. That's just where they're at that age. Children that 4, 5, 6 years old are very egocentric. It's all me, 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 me. The concept of being on a team is somewhat alien until they're 6, 7 years old maybe, and then probably around about 7, some of them will start to understand the notion of spacing and maybe the notion of passing the ball. But at 4 or 5, their mentality is, why would I pass the ball to Peter? I want to score, right? And if I pass the ball to him, I might not get it back. So I'm going to take the ball and I'm going to score in the wrong goal and celebrate. And that's what they do. It's don't worry about it. It's all right. So don't expect too much. It's just they're not there. This age is all about, can we plant a seed that is hopefully a long-term enjoyment of the sport of soccer. And it's all about the enjoyment aspect and being out there and being involved and kicking the ball and being active and making new friends, all those kind of things. And this is just some more kind of stuff and talking about the fact that they're all going to chase the ball. You're wasting your breath yelling spread out, spread out, spread out. They might spread out for 2 seconds and then they're all straight back in. So don't worry about stuff like that. And then you're going to have other players that are watching aeroplanes in the sky, picking daisies out the ground, and that's just where they are cognitively, and it's okay. So those are some of the things you can expect.
Crying. I had crying on my first training session.
Oh, yeah.
It's good.
Well, if nobody peed themselves, then you've done well. So crying's all right. So in terms of your practice with this age group, the pre-K kids, if you can get 30 minutes, you've probably done well. Kindergarten, I'd say an hour tops, maybe 45 minutes, and it should all just be little fun games where each player has a ball pretty much all the time, and you're just trying to get ball familiarity, get them comfortable with having a ball at their feet, dribbling. Can they dribble? Can they kick it into a goal? That kind of stuff. I think it's always a good idea to finish practice with a little scrimmage if you can. That's why the kids like playing, is the actual scrimmage. So I know every practice I ever do, even with the older kids, it's an hour and a half session, but the last 25 minutes is just a scrimmage. I'll let them play. That's what they're there for. That's what they want to do. But in terms of, we'll send you some ideas, but a great way of doing it with these younger kids is what I call adventure soccer, where you try and theme, rather than drills, pick a cartoon that your kids are into, something, and I'm dating myself here, but way back when I was working with younger kids, I always used to use Shrek and Donkey and Princess Fiona, and we'd dress up little games where the kids thought they were trying to free Princess Fiona from the castle. They had to jump on Donkey's back and do this. But in actual fact, they're doing stuff with the ball and working on skills. So rather than, just laying out some cones and say dribble and drum roll around that cone and dribble back, for a 4 or 5 year old, it's a little mundane. Versus if you can dress it up in a theme, your chance of engaging them and keeping them engaged is much greater. So we've got some video links that we can send you with some ideas on that. I think that if I was you guys, that's how I'd find a couple. And here's the thing: if there's one game that you do with your kids and they love it, do that every practice. It's fine. You don't put yourself under this pressure that you need to do something, find something else and do something else. And at this age, if you find a game that has them all active, all moving, all touching the ball, that's what you want. So
I had an 89 boys competitive team, 17-year-old boys, and we played Lava Monster almost every practice, which is like this sort of 3-sided little game we play. I'm telling you, if you find something good and they dig it, just go right back to it, man. Don't, beat that horse till it's dead. Don't get off it. That will keep you sane. Yeah,
I did a session on Thursday, and I'll say the thing, and it's, the kindergarten girls, and the thing that got them all was red light, green light. So with dribbling, so like it's super easy, got something to like call out red and green lights, and so that was definitely the one thing that actually got all 8 of them you know, 10
And you
tips
can,
in 2
and you
minutes.
can do, not to belabor this, but you can do, if you do a progression, so what I do with sort of red light, green light is, you know, yeah, we're dribbling through cones, but I start out by having the kids carry their ball, you know, littlest guys, just carry your ball, and we're gonna go park the car in the garage, you know, we're gonna stop at the green, or stop at the red light, yellow light, we go slow, we're carrying it, and now we're gonna put the ball on the ground, and now we're gonna use our feet to move the car around, you know. And now you're gonna, when I say garage, you're gonna go find a pair of cones and go park your car in the garage. We just sort of, you start with it really simple. And then it's your kick, and then we score some goals and run around, play, you know, 3v3 for 5 minutes, let's go, we're done. You know, and next week, we might do the same thing again. And the next week, we might do it again. Some coaches get really excited and they want their teams to progress. They start out playing red light, green light. And then by the end of the season, they think they should be taking corner kicks and set pieces and, you know, how to, you know, play low pressure, you know, counterattack quickly, you know, like, whoa. If you kept them somewhere near your practice area, good job. By the way, don't set up your practice area right next to the playground. It's a bad idea. Right next to the bathroom, good idea. Right next to the playground, terrible idea. It's just every kid is just gone every time you turn around.
Is the first practice usually like, you know, last year with COVID and everything, we have an only child and he's like, after a while he starts throwing tantrums like the, you know, the first time doing it.
Yeah.
Is it first, like the first practice, are they still getting acquainted with each other and like?
Oh,
kids
for
are-
sure.
Alright.
But I think you'll find that most kids are so self-absorbed that it could be the only one, they could be the only one on the field where there could be 10 other kids. As long as they're having a good time, doesn't matter.
Got it,
You know, it sounds bad for us. It's really not about soccer. Soccer is the vehicle that we're using, but it's not about soccer.
Our son, he's 4, but like he's in this new phase where it's like, you tell him something, he's like, you're rude, and then he runs away. I'm like, I guess go sit down.
This is gonna be the guy, he's coaching everybody else's kids all season, and he's like, where's my kid? I don't know.
No, like it takes him like 1 or 2 like sessions to even warm up. But first
Yeah.
he's like,
Well, the challenge for you guys is you're coaching your own children,
yeah.
which is very different from me coaching a group of kids that that I'm not dads to any of them that I'm aware of anyway. But,
You never know, right?
recording this, I shouldn't have put that
Yeah.
joke in. Yeah, it's difficult coaching your own kids because they can act up like that because they're just not used to you giving attention to a bunch of other kids. So they have your undivided attention all the time at home, and now you go to practice and there's 6, 7 other kids that are all, you know, in need of your attention. So it's tricky. And
Yeah,
I think
he doesn't like, for me, like, if I give him like directions for other kids, he gets like all weird, and then, but if he does it
Yeah.
in school, then he's totally fine. So
Yeah.
it'll probably take a few sessions.
I think so. Just take a few sessions to get used to it.
It's like hosting a birthday party for someone else's kid. You know, and you're looking at, your kid's looking at, where's my presents? I don't get, why are you paying attention to this kid? Why are we doing this?
So these are some things to consider up here, and I would say that this guided discovery thing is related to a good habit to get into when we're trying to teach these kids is to try and if you identify an issue and you want to teach them something, rather than just give them the answer and tell them what to do all the time, if you get into the habit of asking them questions, it starts to get them thinking about the game, what's happening, what do they see, how do I solve a problem, because that is the game of soccer. As I alluded to before, there's no like set plays, it's constantly looking around the field and the picture's changing every few seconds, so kids have to figure out how to make decisions. And one of the challenges that we've had in this country for the longest time is we've overcoached kids when they're younger and created very robotic players. Thing is, you can do that when they're younger and joystick your kids around the field, and for sure that might help you win games, and you might win all your games in your first grade season. But the reality is, if you do that to your kids that for 4, 5, 6 years, they never get an opportunity to read the game, make decisions for themselves, and start forming some kind of anticipation of what's going to happen next. And then what happens is once they get to maybe high school age and they're playing 11v11 and the game's happening really fast, it's happening so fast that there isn't time to react to the sideline instruction from your coach. By the time you hear the instruction, the moment's passed and you've missed it. And you've never practiced decision making on your own because all you've ever known as a 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old is being told what to do all the time. As I say, the game's slow enough when they're that age. You can joystick them around, pass to Johnny, pass to do this, shoot, do this, do this, do that. So it's a good habit to get into when they're younger. So when Simon's talking about that game where you're driving your car into the garage, you know, maybe just off the top of my head, maybe you say, so what happens if you try to drive your car into a garage where somebody else is trying to park their car in the garage at the same time? And then they have to think, well, we might crash cars. Yeah, we might crash cars. So if you see somebody else in the garage, what is that telling you to do?
I'll do what Dad does, roll down the window and flip them off. And turn down the
Yeah. Or-
that'd be great. Throw my coffee out the window.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that's the wrong answer. That's the wrong answer.
Or hopefully their answer is go find another garage. So rather than just tell them, don't go to that garage, there's somebody in there, go there. You're not giving them an opportunity to kind of figure it out themselves. So I think that's a really good habit to try and get into, not just in practices, but during games as well, is try and ask them questions that guide them towards the answer, rather than just giving them the solution straight out the gate. I think we've covered most other stuff up there. So these are the rules for when it comes to game day. 3K 3v3, 6-minute quarters, 2 minutes in between each quarter. I mean, it's ballpark. We've obviously got a game schedule, but there's like a half-hour buffer in between games. But obviously, what you at your age group, you have no referees, so it's just you guys out there. I would recommend you have a little chat with the opposing coach at the start of the game, and you know, just make sure everybody's on the same page. And that's the parameters that we're kind of looking at. I think one of the, whilst you may have a lot of well-intentioned parents who want to help you coach, which is great, sometimes if there's too many coaches, I think it can be a little overwhelming for 4 and 5-year-olds. And at this age group, we say you can go on the field and help move them around and do stuff like that. At first grade, the coaches then move that you have to be on the sideline and you can't go on the field, but there are referees at that age group. But if you imagine your soccer field like this, sometimes when I go up to Thunderbird, I'll see a well-intentioned dad stood behind the goal trying to encourage his team to come shoot here. But the unintended consequence of it is sometimes the defending team, if it's a 4-year-old little girl who has no idea who this 6'4" monster is behind the goal, she doesn't want to go back and defend the goal because it's like, well, there's a guy back there yelling. And so it's a little intimidating. So even though you can go on the field, I think it's always best just to try and stay around this area here on the field and try avoid going too close to the goals or having any parents behind the goals, because it is it's a little much for the other kids that don't know who that is. Any questions on how the games work? Yeah.
I have a question about ball going out of bounds. Are we like rolling the ball back into play, or?
So here's what I would say is,
It's gonna go out of bounds a lot.
if it goes out of bounds, if it goes a couple of feet out of bounds,
Yeah.
and it looks like they're about to kick it back in, just keep playing.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry about it, because it's going to go out of bounds all the time. So if it goes out of bounds by an inch and you call it, stop play, you're going to have to spend the next minute getting everybody ready and restarting. So if it goes out of bounds by a few feet, it's fine. It's when it's getting too close to the parking lot, maybe you want to stop it then and say, okay, let's bring the ball back in. But it's really not that big a deal. So if they dribble, I love it when I go up to Thunderbird and I watch games and I see kids dribbling behind the goal and they're coming back in a big circle all the way around. It's fine. It's no big deal. It really
The best part
is.
is when the other 5 players chase them.
All 6 players behind the goal, but they're slowly working their way back onto the field.
Are there corner kicks?
Technically, yes.
Okay.
But I wouldn't sweat the small rules at this age group, because you want the ball, you want them playing as much. You only got 6-minute quarters, so that 6 minutes, how often can we have it? You know, the ball in play and the kids running and moving around and being active and being involved. That's what we want to encourage as much as possible.
Do people stop at 3 minutes?
Do they swap?
Yeah.
Or
Or do you let them play all
do
6
it all.
minutes? and
I
then-
think
I
probably
would,
most,
it's just for me as a coach, I would let them play 6 minutes,
6 minutes
then put
and
in
then
3
swap
more
them in,
kids,
okay.
6 minutes, you know.
but then you're gonna get a kid after 2 minutes falls down and
Right,
wants out,
agreed.
and
Is it shin pads and cleats or?
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
shin pads and cleats.
You mentioned there was no referees, is there timekeepers or we're
No.
supposed
You guys keep time, yeah.
Phone, watch. With field setup and how, you know, encourage your parents and have, again, talk to the other coach before the game, and like opposing coach, because now we're getting into conflict already.
Yes.
And the other coach, because you really are gonna have to manage all these players together as two people, you know? Encourage those parents to, just like Neil said, the ball is gonna go out of play, the ball's gonna go, I don't know what it is about youth soccer, and it's competitive and it's the parents set up literally their feet touching the line. Nobody does that in baseball, nobody does that in football, nobody does that in basketball. Like, God, stop it, you know, give them 5 yards to play in, you know? You don't need to be sitting that close to little Johnny, you know, just get back a little bit. Same way you run practice. Ask parents to give you the, you know, drop off the kid and go over there. You know, let me work with the kids here for a little bit. So the games are no different than practice. You need a little space. And if mom and dad are right here, you know, and little Johnny is right here and they're just shouting in his ear, you're never gonna get little Johnny to do any of that. You know, you're never gonna have his attention at all. So if you can, you know, just encourage those parents, just give you a little 5 yards, a little space, you know, because the kids do kind of play outside the field a lot.
Are there goals already at the fields, or do you
Yeah.
have to bring your own?
No.
No, we all have that set up for you
Okay.
when you get there.
Okay. And is there a map that shows like what fields or what, and
Yeah,
then
we'll-
and then where you get scheduled to, yeah?
We'll send that all to
No,
you
it's just,
the
we're
next.
throwing it up in the air.
Just one.
To show them.
I already have parents going, okay,
Great
I need
idea,
it.
actually.
Yeah, no, we'll get that out to you in the next couple of days, map, schedules, all that kind of stuff.
In
Yeah.
terms of, oh, go ahead. Are the schedules gonna be put on BIGA, or are they gonna be put in like a spreadsheet? and we
Not
just look
currently,
at that?
they're not gonna go on BIGA, but our intention is by the end of the season. I don't know if you guys know, BIGA is our new registration system. We're all learning it as we go. BIGA doesn't have a scheduling platform, but they do have a way to distribute schedules through, like, that you can't build schedules in BIGA. In fact, you can't build schedules.
You have to
Any
manually do them
software.
one at a time.
Yeah, unfortunately,
There's a lot of them happening right here, and it's annoying. Yeah,
unfortunately, what we've discovered is there is, we've tried for years, we cannot find a game scheduling software anywhere that accommodates everything we need it to do in terms of multiple locations, in terms of coaches that coach 2 or 3 teams, so they have to be here and they've got to get there, in terms of everybody getting 9 games, in terms of everybody getting 1 game every weekend, in terms of people not having double headers, all the things that we need a scheduling software to do, we just cannot find one that ticks every box. So as a result, we do the schedule and that we'll do some of it, but then a huge amount of it is just going in and manually having to move. Well, this coach has got a kindergarten team, second grade team, and a third grade team. So, and it's going to take him at least 30 minutes to get from Thunderbird to get Park to Cochise, and da 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 da. And so it's just way more robust than people realize. It's probably the biggest pain in the rear, isn't it?
that and rosters are the hardest thing.
Yeah,
to do.
but
Do
yeah,
you recommend they reach out to the player, to the parents, and ask them to bring a ball for their kid? 'Cause
Yes.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'd a ball, water, and shin pads, shin guards. So.
Cleats you don't have to have little kids, and some kids will balk at wearing cleats, but you gotta wear shin
Yeah,
guards,
those
'cause-
mixtures, one in flip flops and there's one in cleats.
Yeah.
Predators like
That
70
does,
cleats.
yeah, that does.
She was good, to be fair.
So-
I mean, that'll sort of solve itself pretty quickly.
So the another thing there is if you know you're playing a game and as I say, chat with the opposing coach beforehand, and if it's a lopsided game, one kid's got 3 kids in Predators that are just ballers, and the other team's kids that can't. What is the phrase? Walk, chew gum, and walk at the same time. What is that phrase?
I'm just gonna leave that.
If it's a total mismatch, there's nothing wrong with saying, listen, we're killing you. Do you want to throw on 2 extra players? Make it 5v3, make it 6v4. It's fine. It'd be probably more beneficial if you can. Games are more fun when they're close. Nobody really gets anything from a blowout. A blowout is miserable for the team that is getting blown out, And even the team that are smashing the goals, even those kids, once the 10th goal goes in, it's not even that much fun anymore. It's not even a challenge for them. So we, in the interest of everybody enjoying their season, it's kind of incumbent upon us to, can we manipulate games a little bit to make it, I mean, sport's all about healthy competition and being able to compete. If it's a massive blowout, that's not healthy competition, or it's just a humiliation. And it doesn't need to be a humiliation, because we have the ability as the adults there to manage the game and do things like chuck on a couple of extra players, or I'm going to tell my kids they can only score with their weaker foot from now on, or everybody's got to touch the ball before we can score now. So you're then challenging your own kids to make it so they're learning and they're getting a little bit better, but at the same time hopefully lessening the potential humiliation of a 5-year-old for no reason. So
that is sort of what Thunderbird Park looks like, not to scale and or great drawing. And then there's a school back in here, but kindergarten's on that side, bathrooms here, pre-K's over on the actual Thunderbird Park side, and then there's a basketball court and parking lots are kind of L-shaped around there.
yeah, that's just along the lines of what we've discussed. This one, if it works, it's just a little fun video that happened a few years ago now. So nobody was hurt in the making of this video, I can assure you. But that was actually at Cochise. I'll play it again because it's kind of funny. But you can see one gets it, then another one gets it, and then the same kid manages to tag a third one.
That could go viral.
So, well, it did. It actually made it on America's Funniest Home Videos a few years ago. And as I say, this happened, I think it was like a first grade, second grade boys game at Cochise. And the point of me showing you that is stuff like this happens, and it's funny. It's all it's all good, you know. This is what it's all about, and you know, it's not going to be a game like you see on TV when you're watching Barcelona and the likes play. This is the kind of stuff you're going to see, and obviously once you check everybody's okay, then you can have a little laugh and they giggle at it.
Well, there's a couple, it's a third grade boys game, big couple goalkeepers.
Oh, sorry.
But two of the best things is, the guy who's laughing hysterically, it's one of his kids that's getting smashed with the ball. And then, it's the same kid who kicks all three other kids with the ball. Like, who is this kid, man? He's just angry about some stuff. And like, I got one, the next one, boom, get the last one in the head, you know? I mean, it's the same kid 3 times in a row.
It's just like the ball keeps coming back.
Yeah, it's like, all right, I'll just hit another kid. Here we go, another one, let's go.
All I was told to do was boo the
Yeah,
ball.
yeah. His dad's over there screaming, kick it! You know?
Don't get it.
He's just smashing it.
This is just a little example here of this young lady's called Kelly Hitchcock, and she is playing college soccer now. I can't remember the college. I think it's in Illinois. She's off playing. But this is just an example of the kind of pathway. I remember when Kelly was playing rec 12 years ago, and mum and dad were like you. They were sat in this office, volunteer parent coaches. She has a twin brother who played as well, and then an older brother, he played also. They live really close to Cochise actually. Kelly played rec for years, then she did All-Stars. She got really into it. She decided to make the move to competitive. She became really good, off to college showcase tournaments, getting recruited to play in college. But what I also thought was really cool, she also played lacrosse for Chaparral High School, so she was a multi-sport athlete, which everything I read suggests that kids that play multiple sports is really, really healthy, as opposed to focusing on one sport. And then there's no pictures of her doing it up here, but towards the end, Kelly and both her brothers would be at Cochise refereeing every weekend when they weren't playing games. And as I say, I think she's a freshman now at college up in Illinois. So hopefully that might be a pathway that some of your kids go on as they go through, and they fall in love with the sport, they get a taste for it at rec, and then those are the kind of places it can go. So she's just a little example. In terms of the season ahead, we're working on the game schedule. We'll hopefully have that out in the next few days. It's very rare that we have to deal with weather issues, but occasionally it might, the city of, all of the fields we use are either City of Scottsdale or the school district. They will notify us if they've closed the fields if there's rain, and as soon as we get notification, we would send out an email and say, hey, the fields are closed today. But generally speaking, they'll only close them if there's standing water on the fields. Anything on that side?
We know at the same time, you know, if you look on our website, you can see the rain line there. We practice, we play if it rains. It's not baseball, you know, we play in the rain. I dig on baseball, but the only time we won't play is if it's dangerous. So there's lightning. I mean, sometimes we get crazy, you know, those microbursts that come through and it can put down trees and stuff. But if it's a little rain, the kids aren't made of sugar, you know, let's go, they can play. They think it's the best thing ever when it's raining on them when they play. We rarely get the call from the city to shut the fields. It takes, you know, a few weeks ago when we had those torrential rains a couple of days in a row, that would probably close the fields. But it has to be really pretty heavy. So you'll get parents, if they're dark clouds in the morning, they're like, is the game on, is the game on, is the game? Yes, is the answer. Unless there's lightning or the city has shut the fields or there's some dangerous, you know, situation.
Yeah.
It's pretty rare.
And yeah, that, as Simon says, as soon as we know, we will send out an email, and we don't have a crystal ball, so when people email me and say, are we going to have games today? I mean, unless the city closed the fields, yes, we're playing. So just something to keep in mind. Our club registrar, her name is Polly Robinson. She has all your information, and she will send you a background checker to do, and I think part of that is a concussion course, which is obviously a pretty big thing now, just to make sure people understand what that injury might look like, and make sure you, hopefully at your age group, that doesn't happen at all, but expect that to land in your inbox at some point.
If we have assistant coaches, do they need to do those as well?
They don't, it's just the head coach, yeah.
It's certainly not a terrible idea.
No.
I mean,
Yeah.
to have that concussion course under your belt, it is really good. It's just sort of what to look for when you see two kids knock heads, you know, it's only soccer.
Is that a yearly thing? Cause I did that last year.
Concussion course, you're
If
good.
Yeah, if you've done the concussion course once and we've got your certificate, you're good.
I did it because I'm a team manager for my big kids club team,
Oh.
so I did it for that.
You're
Is that
good.
good? Okay.
Yeah.
Background check we have to do yearly in case you've behaved badly in the time that you haven't done, you know,
So, like we said earlier, we'll have the goals and everything set up for you on Saturdays. Normally we set up a little tent in the shade here, and we'll have somebody employed by Ryzen to be there as just a point person if you need anything. First few weeks we'll try and have some bins of surplus jerseys if somebody needs to switch out sizing, that kind of thing. The bulk of that stuff will be at Cochise, so you may have to go there to switch out uniforms or send a family there. But we'll have some there, and we'll have a point person there. But for the most part, you show up, pre-care down here, kindergartner up here. We'll have it set up, and then we'll take it down at the end of the day. Go on.
As far as, we get lots of grandparents and friends and cousins and people show up for games here. Your teams are scheduled, and the way we know you is kindergarten boys Johnson, you know, coach's last name. So we always encourage everybody to have their kids figure out a team name, you know, the blue diamonds, the red robins, whatever. We have no idea what those are. So when grandma shows up and is like, where are the purple dragons playing? We're like,
Which one?
we're like, kindergarten's over here, pre-K's over here. You know, well, they're wearing blue. There's probably 3 teams out there right now wearing blue, you know. Either boy or girl, because we tend to have, like, boys' games will be on 2 fields and girls, you know, like, and if you can't find your own grandchild, I can't help you with that.
Or where are the Dream Crushers?
The Dream Crusher.
Well, I had a coach email me last season very upset that the opponent were called the Dream Crushers. He felt that was incredibly unsporting, and his little girls were very upset that they'd had their dreams crushed that day. But,
By the way, outside of that other coach and this guy's team, I don't think anybody knew that his team was called the Dream Crusher.
Do you still have a lot of teams that don't have a head coach? Cause like, I think.
Yeah, the pre-K age group, that's our biggest issue is trying to twist arms, and I think Courtney's not here today, unfortunately. She had a family emergency last night. She was supposed to be here, but she's not, and I think Simon does the 3rd grade and older teams, and your coaches are all set,
Oh, I
right?
voluntold them weeks ago.
Right. And Justin does 1st and 2nd grade teams, and I think he's maybe like 3 coaches short, but in the pre-K, out of say 40 teams, I think we're still like 7, 8 coaches short.
It's a moving target. It always is every year, because let's be fair, I don't want to coach my own pre-K team. Like, no thanks. I barely wanted to have a pre-K child, you know. I mean, I had 4 of them, and it was like, no, I don't want to do that ever again. So it's always like it's like a game of chicken. Like, all these parents on the team, we keep saying, one of you has to coach. And we go, okay, we're a week out. One of you needs to coach. And we're 2 days out. All right, one of you's got to coach. And then finally, like game day, some guy comes over to pick up uniforms. He's like, coach. Shoves uniforms on their kids and let's go.
But we normally eventually get somebody to step up for every team. It's very rare that we'd have to, because we'll have those rosters formed, because we know it's 8 kids that go to Redfield Elementary. They're all on the same team. They all live in that neighbourhood. We just not one of those parents is prepared to step up. So we have the team set. We just need somebody, and it can be a mix of parents if they want to rotate it, and 4 or 5 mums, dads take a turn. That's fine. But it's very rare that we'd have to turn around and say, okay, no one stepped up, team's disbanded, and you all got a refund. That rarely ever. I mean, if it came to it, that's what we'd have to do. But that hardly ever happens. So by the time next Saturday rolls around, every team should have a coach.
And along those lines, I would encourage you, I think I was talking to a couple of you before we started, get somebody else on the team to help out. If you're willing to do most of the coaching, get somebody to help you out with emails, or get someone to, hey, can you be at practice? So, because conflicts would happen. All of a sudden, you've got something going on and you can't be at the game on Saturday, or, you know, something happens. Have somebody that's kind of been around, knows all the other kids' names, that'd be good. You know, who's been at practice, so the kids are like, oh, there's, you know, Coach Jenny, I recognize her. They're not like, who is this person? You know, encourage somebody to be kind of your backup, because it will happen. You know, it's 10 weeks, 9 weeks, and something will come up. So just have, you know, get as much help as you can get.
You don't have referees, but I think it's worth making you aware. Once you get to 1st grade, you'll have referees. We've got a big problem in Arizona with a shortage of referees. Refs sign up to do it, they do it for a season and then they quit because they're getting yelled at by adults on the sideline. So no one wants to do it, and obviously every time you get a new batch of referees, they're very inexperienced, and so they make mistakes, they make bad decisions, incorrect decisions. They're not deliberately making bad decisions, they're you know, it just is what it is. But once you get to that age, we really need everybody's help to stop parents yelling at referees. It's the #1 reason why they quit. And because the shortage of referees, the competitive league in Arizona basically approached all clubs and said, within your rec program, you don't need to have referees for 4v4. The coaches can do that. But we argued that we felt our volunteer parent coaches did want referees at 1st and 2nd grade. So we kind of went to bat for that a little bit, and the kind of compromise we've made is we've basically got our competitive kids who are high schoolers who are interested in making some money. We've done a kind of little referee course with them. Those yellow shirts that are for them, we're going to get Rising logos on them, and they will referee our 1st and 2nd grade games at rec on Saturdays, despite, as I say, us getting a little bit of heat to release those refs to do older kids games. But it's a real problem, and if we want to keep having referees at our games, we just need people to be nice to them, basically, simple as that. And we tell our competitive coaches at the start of the game, go introduce yourself to the referee, shake his hand, her hand, have a chat with him, kind of befriend them a little, and it just puts them at ease, because a lot of referees instantly have their back up because they're just waiting for the verbal assault that's coming their way, and it just puts them in a bad spot straight out the gate. But if you can kind of diffuse that, and especially once it comes to first, second grade, and it's a high schooler who isn't a fully licensed referee, they're just doing it to help you out.
I think high schoolers are ambitious. I think it's mostly going to be.
Some of them are
middle
12,
schoolers, yeah.
13 years old.
No, for sure. I guarantee you they.
And so if you help them out, go chat with them and say, and introduce yourself at the start, and maybe at the end of the quarter or whatever it is, say, hey, well done, I thought you did a really good job there. Or try and encourage them and help them, and maybe they'll stick at it, and maybe we'll get out of this referee issue. But it's painful for us when we get people come in to complain and say the referee didn't blow their whistle loud enough. They're a kid, and they're doing their best. They're sometimes they miss stuff. If you've ever blown a whistle, it sounds really loud when you blow it because it's right in your mouth, but maybe somebody 20 feet away doesn't hear it that well. But we really need your help when it's not an issue for you this season, but when the time comes, because the referee thing is becoming we're at the point whereby games are getting cancelled. I'm talking about the competitive. Sometimes games got cancelled because we just don't have referees. No one wants to do it, so it's an issue. But anyway, so uniforms. You get your set of uniforms. They're pre-packed. They come from soccer.com in North Carolina. We tell them how many teams each age group we've got. They send them us a box of uniforms, and between them and Adidas, they determine what sizes are in that. Apparently that's typical for 5-year-old kids. So I would suggest if you haven't got your uniforms yet, when you get them, you line your kids up tallest to shortest, and you give the tallest one the biggest jersey you've got. And in those packs, there'll probably only be 2 different jersey sizes and 2 different short sizes, and kind of work your way down, and hopefully it's there or thereabouts for most of them. They might not be a perfect fit, and if obviously we don't want any kids to feel embarrassed or uncomfortable, so if you do need to switch, any of your kids need to switch out, they can come to the referee tent at Cochise, or we'll have a small supply at Thunderbird, and hopefully we can switch them out to a size that works for them. And if absolutely necessary, obviously we can ask soccer.com to send us one if we don't happen to have that size. But that's how those works. We've got coach shirts for you, coaches equipment as in cones, pennies, a ball that you maybe give to your kids. You can use it for games if you want, you don't have to. And then we sell these pub goals. It's a set of 2 for $60. I think online they're about $100, so the club subsidise them a little. They're very just pop up little goals, and they're really handy for practice.
We're using a size 3 ball.
Yes. Yeah.
I had one of the parents ask, when does that change? Like, I think they got a second grader and a kindergartner.
So they moved to a size 4 ball in 3rd grade.
Okay, great, thanks.
Should we get a whistle for the herding?
No harm in it. I mean, if you've got a big voice, you probably don't need it. But if you're a quieter person, a whistle might not be a bad idea. It's entirely up to you. Not required.
Are the pub goal, are those here?
Yeah.
You can go in here.
They're through the back there. We'll show you them. So, and actually what we'll do is, given that we're going to have people coming in for the next meeting, I wasn't sure how long this would go, but there's probably going to be people coming in here to set up the next meeting. So I would suggest if you've not got your uniforms and you need your stuff, the easiest way to do this once we finish here, which will be done in 2 minutes, is go back out the front door and drive around to the back door of the warehouse, and then we'll load you up all your gear out the back. That way we can start the next meeting and people are not kind of going backwards and forwards, if that makes sense. Simon mentioned we've moved to this BIGA registration platform, and it's like anything when you do it for the first time, there's sometimes some teething issues trying to figure it all out, but hopefully in the long term it will be a real handy tool, and people will just be able to jump on their phones, look at schedules, look at their rosters, all that kind of stuff. And as I say, Courtney's not here today, so any roster questions you have, we can't help you with that. She's putting those together. The one thing to keep, those are the pub goals obviously.
That's what the pre-K will be using during games as
Yes.
well, so.
Yeah.
Kindergartners have medal goals that we set up.
One thing to keep in mind is we get just the nature of it. The 3 weeks before the season, we just get smashed with hundreds of emails a day. It's insane, and it's just really hard to stay on top of replying to them all. And ordinarily, at any other point in the year, we'll reply within 24, 48 hours. But at this time of year, sometimes it takes a few days. So bear with us in that front. It's just a 3-week period of craziness as everybody's emailing their requests and demands. Mostly PCDS parents, right?
The PCDS team.
There's multiple PCDS.
So, yeah, if any roster questions, Courtney will be able to help you with that. Otherwise, we can answer other questions for you. But hopefully, you know, you've got your roster, you've reached out to them. At this point, you may have people reply and say, you've as coach have chosen we're going to practice Tuesdays at Echo Canyon, and they're like, oh, we've got piano lessons on Tuesday, we can't do it. Let us know, and we'll see if we can move them to another team that might be in that neighbourhood. Or if you, I don't know, if you're, say you're kindergarten, you've only got 7 on your roster, and one of your kids got a friend at school who wants to play, we can still slide them on there if they want. So the rosters are still, they're 90% set, but there's still a little bit of fluidity there in terms of getting it all nailed down. And then, you know, there will be a couple of people that we just can't find them a team with a practice day or location that works, and we would just say to them, okay, we tried our best, but we'll just have to refund you. I mean, out of over 2,000 kids, we might do a dozen refunds. That's not many, but
So to clarify on the app where it says, you know, gives you the roster, but there'll never be a calendar, it shows the games on there, right? Not for now?
You would have to add those to your account.
We would do it.
And what I'll tell you is, you need to, any calendaring you need to do in your team.
Yeah, don't.
I know that seems pretty self-evident. I've already had to deal with somebody made a calendar for all their stuff in a different, like in the team or the coaches section. So a bunch of people got all these events on their calendars, and I started getting all caps emails.
Is there a
to
coach
me.
chat?
Do you want to chat with the other coaches?
We have one at the club level for all
A sup-
team managers, that's really nice, so.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not willing to step into
Just wondering.
that.
So if next,
I
like
don't wanna chat with all the
in 2 Saturdays, if there's a game, how do we find out where like who, because right now, like, don't even know, like.
oh no, we'll
Don't
in the
know?
next couple of days we will send you the game schedule.
Yeah,
Got
what
it.
we're gonna do is we're gonna send you the first 3 weeks. And then that buys us a little time to start figuring out, oh shoot, this guy's a kindergarten coach and a 3rd grade coach.
Yeah.
We think we have all that info, but it doesn't always filter all the way down to us. And so then we'll give you the next big block of games. And for you guys, it'll be probably all the way through the end of the season.
Okay.
So we'll send you the first 3 weeks, get parents off your back, because I know some people need to schedule. And reasonably so, they need to know what's happening a couple of weeks down the road. But yeah, I know some people like to calendar stuff for the rest of them. Yeah.
That's what I've got right now.
Yeah.
I have a couple questions. Will there be team pictures?
No.
Okay. You recommend no longer than 30-minute practices for the pre-K?
It's your call, but I think if you can hold their attention for 30 minutes, you've done pretty well.
30 minutes was very long, I did it this week.
Okay.
It's entirely up to you and your group. You might have a group of incredibly advanced children who can go for 45 an hour.
Or you're a wonderful coach and can keep them, well, I mean, if you can keep kids engaged, I mean, the reality is, the little pieces you do inside your practice should only be a few minutes long. So
I
you do something for
think
a few minutes, and then you should do
realistically,
something else, and then
30 to 45 minutes is probably all we're going to get for 4-year-olds.
Okay. And then the first game, is it a week from today or 2 weeks?
24th.
A week from today.
Okay.
Your wife gave you these questions, didn't she?
No.
No?
She'd be proud of me for asking. When I was playing as a kid, like my favorite part of this whole thing was the snack time.
Yeah.
The thing, like,
Yes, absolutely.
coordinating.
Knock
Yeah.
yourself out, man.
And your kids at your age, they will, as I said before, at the end of the game, they'll be more focused on who's brought the cookies today than what the scoreline is.
By the way, assign that
We
to
did
some other
assign
parent
it
too,
to
like,
and
give that
every
to
parent
somebody,
assigned it.
make them manage
Okay,
that.
good idea. Great, and then, I'm assuming there's bathrooms at all the practice fields?
Not necessarily, but most of them there is public bathrooms.
How could we find that out before we're
Where are you practicing?
I think we're at Mojave.
If it's a school, the answer is gonna be no, because the schools they don't leave their facilities open. If it's a park next, so for example, Thunderbird just happens to be, the Thunderbird is this park over here, and then there's, all this other field is all school fields, what's the school?
Redfield.
Redfield School. There happens to be a bathroom right here at the park.
Cause it's a city park.
There
Yeah,
are a couple of
that's Thunderbird
schools
tickets
where
attached
we
to it.
actually do pay for, what they call janitorial
I live right
staff.
next to Mojave, and
I think
don't
Hopi and Echo Canyon, we might have bathrooms available to us, we pay extra to have that. Mojave is actually, we've never really used it before, but it became available on Fridays, so we thought for those in South Scottsdale it might be quite handy.
So
I'm not,
I did it Friday. Would you recommend that as a good day for practice? And Saturday?
a lot of coaches like to do that, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, it's fresh in their mind, right?
sure.
And it's a pretty, I think it's a pretty decent field there, isn't it?
Yeah,
So-
it is, it's a nice field and doesn't really get used except for, it's a premier.
Yeah.
They don't have that many teams on it.
Mm.
I don't think there's any access in Mojave because the bathrooms are all interior on that school.
What time's the earliest game on Saturday? Just so.
8 a.m.
So
Really?
someone, one of them will start.
7:30?
No, 8.
Oh, pre-K can't.
8 a.m. Yeah. And your games will basically be some point between 8 and 3.
Okay.
Maybe 3 will be the latest. On any
The
given
parents
week.
on the field, can you like just make it come on whenever, or? is it-
No,
Parents
parents should
no.
not be on the field. Coaches,
Only
They
coaches.
should not.
coaches
Okay,
should only be on the field.
Yeah.
Parents should be
Yeah, we
far away.
when I was talking earlier, yeah, I would recommend that you only ever have one coach on the field at any given time. As soon as you get more than two coaches out there, it just becomes a lot for the kids. So, and if you don't need to be on the field, I would just step off. But probably the 4-year-olds, you probably need to be on just to kind of guide them around a little bit. But yeah, one parent, one coach from each team on the field tops would be the best way to do it. Yeah.
What's the best way to communicate with parents? Because I tried the chat and Viga and the email and I still didn't get any response.
Oh, really?
The chat on Viga, unless they've done the activation, might not.
So everybody received the BIGA activation email, I think, 2 days ago.
Unless they've activated it
probably
and
like a
got
week ago,
downloaded the
yeah.
app.
Maybe.
Might not.
We just did a group chat and text message.
So, I mean, I think most parents just do it via email.
I did.
And yeah, so I don't know why they've
Well,
not.
fine, show up and-
And you're gonna get some parents who are really involved, and some that just go, okay, practice is Tuesdays at 5 o'clock, here's my kid, you know? And you may never, talk to them at all. I mean, there's just sort of varying levels.
Yeah, I sent out by email, and I think only one person responded to the email, but everybody turned up for practice.
Some people actually leave the kid there and then leave. No, right? If it's a 4-year-old. Hopefully.
Last
I
year.
was trying to get rid of my 4-year-olds for